everybody, it's Miss V. Hope you're having a great day and ready for another class of forensics. Now, yesterday and the day before, we've been focusing on blood components, which are red blood cells, white blood cells, plasma, and platelets. So by now, you should be familiar with what these four components are and what they do in the body, as well as what they look like and the relative number that they appear in our body. And now that we know what these are, especially red blood cells and plasma, we're going to start talking about blood typing. Now, if you've taken grade 11 bio, this may seem a little familiar. However, it's always great to have a recap, or it can be helping you to prepare for next year as well. Now, blood typing is a good thing to learn in forensics because it is a good type of class evidence. Now, sometimes from blood, you are able to get a DNA sample. However, if that's not available, you can still get some good information. By knowing what a criminal's blood type is, you are now going to be able to narrow down your search of suspects. If I know that whoever committed the crime has type A blood, I can now narrow down the amount of people in my suspect pool to just the ones that also have type A blood. Now we're going to go through a little bit of how blood typing works within the next week or so, and probably do a few fun activities to help you get comfortable with this concept. But today we're just going to go through some of the basics. Now you may be wondering, what actually determines your blood type? Your blood type is established before you're even born, and it's given to you by the genes that you have inherited from your parents. I'm not talking about the blue jeans that you're wearing right now. I'm talking about the genetic material that your parents have given you. You receive one gene from your mother and one gene from your father. Now, these two genes determine your blood type by causing proteins called antigens to exist on the surface of all of your red blood cells. Think of them as like little flags that are in like a specific shape. Now, there are three alleles or genes that your parents could give you, right? They're only going to give you one out of these three options. So your parent can either give you an A gene, a B, or an O, also known as a recessive. Okay, so you're going to get one from your mom and one from your dad. And when we put those two genes together, you actually have 6 different possible combinations, right? Your mom could give you an A and your dad could give you an A. You could get 2 Bs. You could also get maybe an A and an O, or an A and a B. There's many different combinations. However, they get simplified down. So if I have an A from my mother and an A from my father, I have type A blood. If one of them gives me an A and one of them gives me an O, or a recessive allele, I also have type A blood. And the same thing goes for type B. The only way you can get type O blood is by having both parents give you a gene for that O or that recessive trait. And the only way of having AB blood is by having one parent give you an A gene and one giving you a B gene. Okay? So now you can actually use this thing called a Punnett square. You should be familiar with these from grade 9 science, but if you need a little refresher, we're going to do one right now. So these are the alleles from the mother, and these are the alleles from the father. And now we can actually determine the possible blood types of these two people's children. So if the mother and the father both give A alleles, that means that I'm going to have an AA. If my mother donates a B and my father gives me an A, I now have AB. If my mother gives A and my father gives O, that's AO. And over here, that's going to be BO. Now that simplifies down to just one simple letter, right? If I have 2 A's, that means that my blood type is going to be A. If I have both an A and a B, my blood type is now AB. If I have an A, so this is telling me that I have A antigens on my blood cell, and O, that means that I also have type A. Imagine this is almost like a blank. Okay, whatever is before it takes over. And same thing is going to happen here, but with the B. Now, people can have type A, B, AB, or O blood, depending on that antigen that is on their red blood cell. Now, the antigen is going to be here on the surface of your red blood cell, and you're actually going to have something else swimming around in your plasma around those red blood cells. And these are called antibodies. They will be really important in the next few slides, so we will be getting to those very soon. Now, your type A blood, like I said, is going to be called type A blood because it has A antibodies on it, or sorry, A antigens on it. Very important not to get those mixed up. Sorry about that. Okay, so those are going to be a specific shape. Your type B blood is going to have B antigens on the surface. AB blood is going to have a combination of both A antigens and B antigens on the surface of the red blood cell. And your O blood is going to be completely empty. I like to think of the O as almost like a zero, meaning there are 0 antigens on its surface. Okay. Now, type A blood, of course, like we just talked about, the antigen that will be present is the A antigen on the surface of that red blood cell. But like I talked about, antibodies are going to be floating around in that fluid around my red blood cells. And now what's important to know is that whatever is on the surface of my red blood cell, the opposite is going to be present in my plasma. So if I have A antigens, that means that I must have B antibodies. Similarly, if I have blood type B, I have B antigens. And that means that I have the opposite. I have A antibodies swimming around in my plasma. Now, if I have AB blood, that means I have both the A and the B antigen hanging out on the surface of my red blood cell. And the opposite of having all of my antigens on the surface of my red blood cell is having no antibodies in my plasma. So AB is interesting because it has no antibodies hanging out in the plasma. Okay? Type O blood is not going to have any antigen on the surface of the red blood cell. It's going to be completely blank. And if I have nothing on the surface of my red blood cell, well, then the opposite is going to be the case for my plasma, right? I'm going to have everything. I'm going to have both A and B antibodies swimming around in my plasma. Okay? Now you may be wondering what these antibodies do. Okay? These antibodies reject or attack any antigen that is not on the individual's red blood cells. They almost act like a guard or an attack system to help protect your body. And the way they do this is they have a specifically shaped active site that connects with a specific antigen. So if this is antibody C, it's only going to connect up with antigens that also match up with that antigen C. Okay? By doing this, they actually latch on. It's like a lock and a key model. It perfectly fits and it connects with that antigen and it will hold on to it because it recognizes it as something foreign, something that is not supposed to be in your blood. By holding on to it, it immobilizes it and gives your body enough time for those white blood cells to come and get rid of it. So the antibody is a protein that will react with specific foreign agents to help protect your body. And they're usually just floating around in your plasma and hanging around those red blood cells trying to protect them. All right, so now just to recap, this is something that'll be good for your note, is type A blood, of course, is going to have an A antigen on it. That is why it's called type A blood. Now, once again, whatever it has on the surface of the red blood cell, it has the opposite in the plasma. So if I have A antigen, I have B antibodies. And just like this, if I have B blood, that means I have B antigens. And I'm going to have A antibodies. If I have AB blood, that means that I have both of these antigens on the surface of my red blood cell. And if they are both present on the red blood cell, that means that I have nothing present is an antibody in my plasma. And just the opposite, if I am type O blood, O means 0, I have no antigen present on the surface of my red blood cell. And if I have nothing present on my antigen, that means that I'm going to have everything present as an antibody in my plasma. I'm both going to have A and B antibodies there. Now, one thing that I do want to mention before I go into this slide is that blood, right, if I have type A blood, it can only accept that specific antigen back. Okay, so if I have type A blood, I have A antigens, and I can only accept blood that has matching antigens. So I can only accept blood that has A's on it. I cannot accept B's. Those will not react well with me, and it'll actually cause a really nasty reaction that we will talk about later. So type A blood can only accept A blood because it has A antigens. It can't accept B because it has B antigens that will not match up. Actually, right, if I have A B antigens entering my blood, those B antibodies present in this A blood is going to link up and cause that linkage to happen, which is not a good reaction. Okay? I can also not accept AB blood because it has a B present. And I can accept O blood because it has no antigens in it for me to react to. So A blood can accept both A and O blood for donation. Okay? Now, people with O blood can actually give blood to any blood type, which is really cool. Because they have no antigen on them, they can donate blood to A, to B, AB, or O. They are called the universal donor. Another really interesting thing to think about is how people with AB blood can receive blood from any blood type because they have both A and B antigens on the surface of their red blood cell. They are already familiar with it. They have no antibodies that are going to be reacting with antigens. So they can accept blood, of course, from AB, the same type as themselves. They can accept blood from A and B, as well as O, because there are no antigens there. So this is called the universal recipients. They can receive blood from any blood type. Now you may be wondering, well, so what happens if I mix two wrong blood types, two incompatible blood types? And what happens is called agglutination, also known as clumping. This is because the antibodies of the individual receiving the blood are attacking the antigens on the red blood cell of the incoming blood. So imagine these are all little red blood cells that have just been put into someone's bloodstream, and they are not a match. Your antibodies are going to notice that it is not a match. It's not matching the normal blood that you have. And so it goes and it links on to those red blood cells and starts clumping them or agglutinating them together. Now you may be wondering, why is this a big deal? Sure, my blood has a few clumps in it. Doesn't mean it's going to stop me from working properly. Well, human bodies are all about efficiency. So we want to make sure that blood is very smooth, it doesn't have a lot of friction, and that it's getting where it needs to go as fast as it possibly can. When blood clumps up like this, it is not able to make that smooth journey, and it can actually be fatal if not caught at the right time. Okay, this is a picture of a successful transfusion, and this is a picture of a non-successful transfusion. Now we're just going to go over a recipient and the donor, what kind of blood can each blood type receive? Now, if there is no clumping, we're going to put a check mark. And if there is clumping, we're going to put an X, showing you that these blood types cannot be donated, or they cannot receive blood, sorry. Okay, so O blood, of course, can accept type O. It can always accept its own back. However, because it has no antigens on it, it cannot receive any other antigen. So it can actually not receive A, B, or AB blood because of the antigens present on those red blood cells. We're going to get that nasty agglutination happening and will not bode well for our patient. Type A blood can always accept O because there are no antigens here for it to react to. It can also always accept its own type back. However, it cannot accept anything with a B antigen. So these two options are out. Similarly, B blood can also accept O because of the lack of antigens. It cannot accept A. It can accept its own back. And it cannot accept AB blood because of that A antigen. Now, AB blood, like we talked about previously, is the universal recipient. So it can accept A blood, it can accept B blood, and its own back, as well as O, of course. So this is a really nice way to remember who can receive what. I also have a little bit of a quicker trick for you that I use all the time. It's called the blood donation waterfall, or at least that's what I call it anyways. And in order to do this, you just need to draw your 4 blood types in a specific pattern. You're going to start with O at the top, A and B separately on either side, and then AB blood here at the bottom. Now, the interesting thing you have to remember about a waterfall is that the water always flows down, or it can always give down, but the water cannot go back up. Okay, so when I think about that, that means that O blood can donate to itself, but it can also donate to A, AB, or B blood. Now, also realize that, right, it cannot go back up the waterfall, so that means that AB cannot donate to O, right? O can only receive its own blood type. Now, if I go over here, A blood can donate to itself, or it can donate to AB. Similarly, B blood can donate to itself or to AB, and B cannot really donate to anybody. However, it can receive blood from everyone else. The last thing I want to show you here is just the proportions that different blood types are present in our human population. So many people think that O blood is very rare. It's actually one of the most common blood types we have, which is very fortunate considering that it is the universal donor. A blood is next at about 40%, and then B, and the most rare blood type is actually AB. So if you're actually curious about knowing what your blood type is, the quickest way to do that is to donate blood once you are of legal age, and they will send you a little letter in the mail telling you what your blood type is. You can probably also ask your doctor, but yeah, I just thought I'd let you know that. There may be one thing that you're thinking I'm missing. You may be wondering, well, what about positive and negative blood? That is another component to blood typing, and a very important one as well, that we'll be going over tomorrow. So I think that we have done quite a bit for today, so I'm going to let you have a little bit of a break, maybe enjoy the rest of your day, or work on another class, or work on some missing work that you haven't gotten to yet in this course. Hope you're having a great day, everybody. Take care, and I'll see you tomorrow.